The night sky above New York City blazed with unnatural light as the invasion began. It wasn't a slow infiltration or a diplomatic first contact. It was swift, calculated violence. Massive ships descended through the atmosphere, their hulls reflecting the city lights below like obsidian mirrors. The citizens of Earth could only watch in horror as thousands of people were lifted from the streets by columns of light, their bodies suspended momentarily before disappearing into the bellies of the alien vessels. Emma Lawson stood in the emergency command center beneath the Pentagon, her eyes fixed on the wall of screens displaying similar scenes from cities across the globe. Tokyo, London, Mumbai, Sydney, all under simultaneous attack. As the strategic response coordinator for Earth's recently formed Unified Defense Initiative, she had trained for first contact scenarios, but nothing like this. 8,000 civilians taken in the first hour, reported General Harris, his voice steady despite the chaos. The pattern suggests they're targeting densely populated urban centers. Emma pushed her dark hair away from her face, the sleepless night evident in her eyes. Any communication attempts? None responded to. They're ignoring all broadcasts on all frequencies. The room fell silent as footage from Rio de Janeiro showed hundreds of civilians being lifted into the sky, their screams inaudible through the surveillance feed. Emma felt her nails digging into her palms. These weren't random abductions. They were calculated, precise. The invaders knew exactly what they were doing. "What about military response?" she asked. Colonel Martinez stepped forward. "Conventional weapons have minimal effect on their shields. Nuclear options are being considered. But with so many hostages aboard their vessels..." Emma nodded, understanding the impossible situation. "We need more information. These beings, whoever they are, didn't travel across the universe just to collect humans like specimens. There's something more happening here." Little did Emma know how right she was, or how devastating the truth would prove to be. 3 days after the initial attack, Earth's population had decreased by nearly 500,000 people. The invaders, now designated as the Kavarans based on intercepted communications, had established orbital positions around the planet. Their ships remained largely stationary, except when descending to collect more humans. Emma had barely slept, surviving on military-grade stimulants and determination. She now stood in a classified research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, where a team of the world's brightest minds had been assembled. The room buzzed with controlled urgency as scientists and military personnel worked at various stations. Dr. Helen Zhao, Earth's leading xenobiologist, approached Emma with a tablet displaying complex data. Despite the crisis, Dr. Zhao maintained a composed demeanor, her lab coat pristine and her movements deliberate. "We've been analyzing the radiation signatures from their ships," Dr. Zhao explained, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had just discovered something terrible. "It's not just advanced technology, Emma. They're manipulating something more fundamental." "What do you mean?" Emma asked, taking the tablet. "They're bending temporal energy. These beings aren't just traversing space, they're manipulating time itself." The realization hit Emma like a physical blow. "That's why our weapons are ineffective. They're anticipating our attacks before we even launch them." Dr. Zhao nodded grimly. "Yes, but there's more. We've detected massive energy buildups in their flagship. They're preparing something big, something that operates on principles similar to their temporal technology." Before Emma could respond, Tom Carter, the commander of Earth's Special Tactical Response Unit, burst into the room. His normally composed face was ashen, his hands gripping a data drive so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "We captured one," he announced. A scout ship crashed near the Sahara. Most of the crew died on impact, but one survived long enough for us to extract information. The room erupted in a flurry of activity as Tom connected the drive to the main system. The screens filled with images of the alien. A tall, gaunt figure with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with an internal light. Its anatomical structure was vaguely humanoid, but with elongated limbs and a head that featured multiple sensory organs arranged in patterns unfamiliar to human biology. We managed to establish rudimentary communication before it died. Tom continued. What we learned. He paused, swallowing hard. They call themselves the Kavarans. They're not just abducting humans. They're harvesting genetic material for compatibility testing. Compatibility with what? Emma asked, though she already feared the answer. With their temporal erasure weapon. Tom replied, They've done this before, to countless other species across the galaxy. They're testing us to see if our genetic structure can withstand temporal manipulation. Those who can't... His voice trailed off. Dr. Zhao stepped forward, her scientific detachment momentarily replaced by horror. They're erasing entire species from the timeline, not just killing them, making it so they never existed at all. Emma stared at the footage of the dying Kavaran, understanding now washing over her. That's why we've never encountered alien life before. It's not that it doesn't exist. It's that it's been systematically erased from history. Tom finished. The implications were staggering. The Kavarans weren't just invaders. They were cosmic editors, rewriting the universe's story by removing entire chapters of evolutionary history. The captured alien ship contained data about their weapon. Tom continued. Dr. Zhao's team has been analyzing it. Dr. Zhao nodded. It's a temporal cascade device. It doesn't just destroy in the present. It propagates backward and forward through time, eliminating all traces of a species' existence. The genetic testing they're conducting on humans is to determine our temporal resilience, whether we can be completely erased. Emma's mind raced. So, the abductions are test subjects. Tom confirmed. Based on the aliens' final communications, we have less than 2 weeks before they deploy their weapon against Earth. Emma looked around the room at the assembled experts, the best minds humanity had to offer, now faced with the most existential threat imaginable. Her decision formed with crystal clarity. Then we have 2 weeks to create our own temporal weapon. She declared, if they can erase species from history, then perhaps we can do the same to them. In the days that followed, the Kavarans continued their abductions while Earth mobilized like never before. International borders became meaningless as resources were pooled toward a single goal: survival. Emma's team, now expanded to include experts from every scientific discipline, worked around the clock to understand and replicate the temporal technology. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Alex Thorne, a theoretical historian with a background in quantum physics, identified a pattern in the Kavaran technology. They're not actually erasing species completely. Alex explained during an emergency meeting. His tall, lanky frame leaned over the conference table, eyes bright despite his exhaustion. They're shifting them into a parallel timeline, one where that species never evolved. It's not erasure so much as exile from our reality. Emma considered this. Does that change our approach? Alex nodded enthusiastically. Completely. We don't need to create a weapon that erases them. We need one that shifts them into a timeline where they never existed here. Dr. Zhao, who had been listening intently, spoke up. The difference is subtle but critical. Instead of trying to rewrite all of history, we just need to create a temporal bifurcation point and shift them to the alternate branch. "Can we do that in the time we have left?" Emma asked. "With what we've learned from their technology." Dr. Zhao smiled for the first time since the invasion began. "I believe we can." The team worked tirelessly, converting theory into reality, using salvaged components from the crashed Cavaran ship and Earth's most advanced quantum technology. They began constructing what they called the bifurcation device. The weapon would create a temporal split at the moment of its activation, shifting the Cavarans into an alternate timeline where they had never discovered Earth. As the device took shape in the heart of the underground facility, Emma faced a growing ethical dilemma. During a rare moment of rest, she found herself alone with Tom in the facility's observation deck, looking up at the night sky through reinforced glass. The Cavaran ships were visible as ominous dark shapes occluding the stars. "We're about to erase an entire species from our timeline," she said quietly. "Even if we're not killing them in the conventional sense." Tom's normally hard expression softened slightly. "They've done it to countless others. They were planning to do it to us. That doesn't make it right." Emma replied, "We're making the same choice they did, deciding who deserves to exist in our reality. It's us or them, Emma." Tom said firmly, "There's no moral high ground when extinction is the alternative." Emma knew he was right, but the weight of the decision still pressed heavily on her conscience. "I just keep thinking about the implications. If we succeed, no one will remember they were ever here. All those people they took, their families won't even remember they existed. Is that better or worse than remembering loved ones who were taken forever?" Tom asked, before Emma could answer. An alarm blared throughout the facility. They rushed to the command center to find chaos erupting. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed one of the Cavaran ships positioning itself directly above their location. "They've found us," General Harris announced grimly. "The weapon must have given off a temporal signature they detected." "What's the status of the bifurcation device?" Emma demanded. Dr. Zhao looked up from her station. 97% complete, but we need at least 6 more hours to finalize the calibrations." "We don't have 6 hours, Tom stated, pointing to tactical displays showing Cavaran landing craft descending toward the mountain. Emma made her decision instantly. "Initiate evacuation protocol. Essential personnel only will remain to complete the device. Everyone else, get to the emergency bunkers at Site B." "You're staying, I assume?" Tom asked, though he already knew the answer. Emma nodded. "Someone needs to make sure that device activates, even if it's not perfectly calibrated." As the facility emptied, Emma assembled her core team. Dr. Zhao to complete the technical aspects, Alex to ensure the temporal calculations were correct, and Tom to provide security with a small team of Special Forces operators. The Cavarans breached the outer perimeter within an hour. The facility's defenses, formidable as they were, could only slow the technologically superior invaders. Through security feeds, Emma watched as silvery figures moved with unnatural grace through the corridors, their movements sometimes blurring as if they existed partially outside normal time. "Status?" she demanded, turning to Dr. Zhao. "Final calibrations complete." The scientist replied, "But there's a problem. The device needs to be activated from the central chamber, the same one the Cavarans are heading toward. The temporal field won't extend to the control room." Emma understood the implication immediately. Whoever activated the device would be caught in the temporal shift alongside the Cavarans. "How long until they reach the central chamber?" she asked Tom. He checked the security feeds. 10 minutes, maybe less. Emma made her decision. "I'll activate it manually. The rest of you, Get to the emergency evacuation point. Tom stepped forward. No, I should do it. You're needed to coordinate what comes after. After this, there won't be an after to coordinate. Emma replied. If this works, the Kavarans will never have come here. History will rewrite itself. Then it doesn't matter who stays. Tom argued, exactly why it should be me. Emma insisted. I made this call. I'll see it through. Before Tom could protest further, a massive explosion shook the facility. The lights flickered, and several systems went offline. They've breached the inner perimeter, Alex reported, his voice tight with fear. We're out of time. Emma looked at each of them, Dr. Zhao with her brilliant mind, Alex with his historical perspective, and Tom with his unwavering determination. Get to safety. That's an order. For a moment, it seemed like Tom might refuse, but Dr. Zhao placed a hand on his arm. She's right. We need to ensure someone survives who understands what happened, even if history changes. Reluctantly, Tom nodded. Good luck, Emma. As they departed, Emma made her way to the central chamber where the bifurcation device waited. The massive apparatus hummed with energy, its core glowing with a light that seemed to exist both here and somewhere else simultaneously. Emma could hear the Kavarans approaching, the strange, rhythmic sounds of their movement echoing through the corridors. She positioned herself at the control panel and began the activation sequence. The device responded immediately, the humming intensifying as temporal energy built within its core. The chamber door exploded inward, and 3 Kavarans entered. Seeing Emma at the controls, they moved toward her with impossible speed. But they were too late. Emma pressed the final activation sequence and locked the controls. For Earth, she whispered as the device reached critical energy levels. The Kavarans froze, seemingly understanding what was happening. One of them reached toward Emma, its silvery limb elongating unnaturally. The creature's face, if it could be called that, contorted in what might have been fear. The bifurcation device erupted with blinding light, expanding outward in a sphere of temporal energy. Emma felt a strange sensation, as if she were both dissolving and crystallizing simultaneously. The Kavarans seemed to flicker, their forms becoming transparent, then solid, then transparent again. The temporal wave expanded beyond the facility, encompassing the mountain, then the continent, then the entire planet. Every Kavaran ship, every Kavaran being, began to shift out of reality. But something unexpected happened. The temporal energy interacted with the Kavaran's own technology, creating a feedback loop that intensified the effect. Instead of simply shifting to another timeline, the Kavarans were being erased more fundamentally, their entire species being retroactively removed from the universe's history. Emma watched in horror and fascination as the beings before her not only disappeared, but seemed never to have been there at all. The weapon she had helped create was doing more than they had intended. It was doing to the Kavarans exactly what they had done to countless other species. As the temporal wave reached its peak, Emma closed her eyes, expecting to be erased alongside the invaders. But instead of oblivion, she experienced a cascade of alternate realities, glimpses of timelines where the Kavarans never evolved, where they chose different paths, where they never became the cosmic editors they had been. She saw the species they had erased restored to existence, timelines healing themselves as the Kavarans' influence was removed. And then, darkness. Emma opened her eyes to find herself still in the central chamber. but transformed. The bifurcation device was gone, replaced by standard research equipment. The facility around her showed no signs of battle or alien technology. For a moment, she wondered if she had imagined everything. Then Alex burst into the room, his face a mixture of confusion and amazement. "Emma, you won't believe what's happening. Everyone's memories are changing. People are remembering family members they'd forgotten. Historical events that didn't happen before." Tom and Dr. Zhao followed closely behind, both looking as disoriented as Alex. "The temporal wave," Dr. Zhao said, her scientific mind already analyzing what had occurred. "It didn't just erase the Kavarans. It restored everything they had erased. The timeline is healing itself." "But why do we remember?" Emma asked. "If they never existed, why do we remember fighting them?" "The device," Tom suggested. "Being at the epicenter of the temporal event must have shielded us somehow. We're anomalies now. We remember a history that never happened." Over the following weeks, the world settled into its new reality, or rather, its original reality restored. The thousands of abducted humans returned to their lives, with no memory of their ordeal. Historical records adjusted, filling in gaps that had previously been erased by Kavaran intervention. Species that had been removed from existence reappeared, causing scientific upheaval as biologists suddenly discovered creatures that had always been there. For Emma and her team, the adjustment was more difficult. They alone remembered the invasion, the desperate race to create the bifurcation device, and the moral weight of their decision. In a world that had never known the Kavarans, they carried the memory of almost having been erased from existence. 1 month after the event, Emma stood on the observation deck of what was now simply a research facility, looking up at the stars. Tom joined her, his presence a silent comfort. "Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing?" Emma asked quietly. Tom considered the question before answering. "I've been thinking about that a lot. We didn't just defend ourselves. We restored countless other species they had erased. In a way, we undid a cosmic injustice. But we became what we fought against," Emma argued. "We erased an entire species from history." "Not exactly," came Dr. Zhao's voice as she and Alex joined them on the deck. "I've been analyzing the temporal data we still have. The Kavarans weren't completely erased. They were shifted to a parallel evolutionary path. They still exist, just not as the species that discovered temporal erasure technology. So, somewhere out there, they're still evolving, but along a different path?" Emma asked, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Alex nodded. "A path where, hopefully, they make better choices." The four of them stood in silence, looking up at the vastness of space with new understanding. They were guardians of a secret history, keepers of a memory that existed nowhere else in the universe. "What do we do now?" Tom finally asked. Emma turned to face her team, the only people who could truly understand what they had experienced. "We watch, we learn, and we make sure humanity never becomes what the Kavarans were." "Cosmic editors," Alex said with a shudder. "No species should have that power." Dr. Zhao agreed. As they spoke, satellites around Earth detected unusual radiation coming from a distant star system. Radiation that bore a striking similarity to early Kavaran technology. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. Perhaps the universe had a way of balancing itself after all. Perhaps some technologies were destined to be discovered, regardless of which species found them first. "We should form a permanent task force," she suggested. to monitor for temporal anomalies and to guard against this technology ever being used again. The others agreed without hesitation. They had witnessed the erasure of an entire species from history. And while it had been necessary for survival, none of them wished to see such power wielded again by any species, including their own. In the years that followed, Emma's team expanded their monitoring capabilities, always watching for signs that someone, somewhere, was attempting to edit the cosmic narrative. They became the unacknowledged protectors of history itself, guardians against temporal weaponry that officially had never existed. And sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, Emma would look up at the stars and wonder about the Kavarans, not the conquerors they had been, but the species they might have become in that other timeline. She hoped they had found a better path, one that led to creation rather than erasure. Because in the end, she had learned the most profound lesson of all, that existence itself was precious, and that the true measure of a species was not its power to destroy, but its wisdom to preserve. The universe's story was vast enough for all its characters, each with their own tale to tell. And no one, human, Kavaran, or otherwise, had the right to decide which stories deserved to be told. Emma had helped erase a species from history to save her own. But she had also vowed never to make such a choice again. Some powers were too great, some decisions too weighty, for any single species to bear. The cosmos had nearly lost its storytellers once. She would ensure it never came so close again. As dawn broke over the horizon, Emma turned away from the stars with renewed purpose. History may not remember the near extinction of humanity, but she did. And that memory would guide her, and through her, perhaps all of humanity, toward a future where the power to erase was replaced by the wisdom to coexist. For in the vastness of space and time, perhaps the greatest achievement wasn't to control the narrative, but to ensure that all stories had the chance to be told.